Before we begin, if you're listening to this alone at night, you're exactly where you should be. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more true horror stories, disturbing encounters, and unexplained events uploaded every day. Now lock your doors, turn off the lights, and let's get into tonight's stories. Every cruise ship has places passengers never see. Crew hallways, laundry rooms, engine compartments, storage decks hidden below the waterline. After working aboard a cruise ship for almost 3 years, I thought I'd walked every inch of it, every staircase, every maintenance tunnel, every service elevator. Then one stormy night, the crew elevator stopped at a deck that wasn't listed on any emergency map. The display simply read, 13. The problem was, our ship didn't have a deck 13. The elevator panel skipped directly from 12 to 14. And yet, the doors still opened. This happened during a 14-night Caribbean voyage in the fall of 2023. At the time, I worked overnight maintenance aboard a cruise ship carrying nearly 4,000 passengers. My shift started at 11 p.m. Most guests were asleep before midnight. That's when our work began. Repairing leaking pipes, resetting electrical panels, replacing damaged fixtures. Most nights, the ship felt almost peaceful. Only the sound of engines echoed through the steel corridors. One Thursday, just after 2:17 a.m., I received a work order. A ceiling light had failed near the crew laundry. I grabbed my tools, stepped into the crew elevator, pressed deck 5. The doors closed. Instead of stopping at 5, the elevator continued climbing. Then, a number I'd never seen before. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. A cold draft drifted inside. Beyond the doors stretched a long passenger corridor. Blue carpet, brass handrails, polished cabin doors. Everything looked immaculate, but something immediately felt wrong. The hallway was completely silent. No music, no engine vibration, no voices, nothing. Cruise ships are never that quiet. I stepped into the corridor. The air smelled faintly of salt water. Not the clean, filtered air that filled the rest of the ship. Every cabin door carried brass numbers. Odd numbers only. Then I noticed something unsettling. Every cabin door displayed a do not disturb sign. Every single one. I called the bridge on my radio. Only static answered. I tried engineering. Nothing. The radio worked perfectly everywhere else on the ship. A luggage cart stood unattended halfway down the corridor. Old-fashioned. Wooden. Unlike the stainless steel carts we actually used. Resting on top was a folded cruise newsletter. Curious, I picked it up. The ship's name matched ours, but the sailing date was 12 years earlier. My hands immediately started shaking. Somewhere ahead, a cabin door clicked open. Very slowly, a man wearing an old crew maintenance uniform stepped into the hallway. His uniform matched ours, except for one thing. The company logo had been retired years before I joined. He smiled politely. "You missed inspection." "I think I'm lost," I replied. He shook his head. "No, you just arrived early." Every instinct told me to leave. I backed toward the elevator. The doors remained open, waiting. Before stepping inside, I glanced down the corridor one last time. Every cabin door now stood open. Passengers quietly filled the doorways. Men, women, children. None of them spoke. None of them moved. They simply watched me. The maintenance worker raised one hand, not waving, pointing, toward an empty cabin. Its door stood wide open. Room 1313. I entered the elevator, pressed deck 5 repeatedly. The doors closed. Seconds later, they opened onto the familiar crew hallway. The engine noise returned. The radio crackled back to life. Everything looked normal again. The next morning, I asked the chief engineer whether the ship had ever included a deck 13. He frowned, then quietly asked, "Did the elevator stop there?" I hadn't mentioned the deck number. He sighed. The original blueprints included a 13th deck during the design phase. The company removed it before construction was completed. Officially, deck 13 had never existed. Mostly, over the following weeks, the elevator occasionally hesitated after deck 12. Never long enough to stop. Just long enough for the display to flicker. Then continued to deck 14. Nobody else admitted seeing it. Until one rainy evening, Another maintenance technician approached me in the crew lounge. Without sitting down, he quietly asked, "If the elevator ever opens on 13. He looked directly into my eyes. "Don't get off." I asked him why. He only shook his head. I did. He refused to say anything else. Near the end of the voyage, a violent storm forced everyone indoors. Around 2:17 a.m., the crew elevator alarm activated. No one had called it. The control panel displayed 13. The bridge ordered engineering to inspect the system. 3 of us rode the elevator together. It climbed. Then, the doors opened. The corridor was empty. No passengers. No maintenance worker. No luggage cart. Nothing. Except for one thing. A brass room key lay on the carpet, attached to a faded tag. Room. The captain ordered the elevator shut down immediately. The key disappeared before sunrise. No one admitted taking it. I finished the contract and never signed another cruise ship agreement. These days, I stay on land, where buildings stay in one place. Sometimes, though, when I ride an elevator in a hotel or office building, I notice the floor numbers. If they skip from 12 to 14, I always wonder whether the missing floor is really missing, or whether it's simply waiting for the right elevator to stop. One of the quietest places on a cruise ship after midnight is the promenade deck. During the day, it's crowded with passengers, people jogging, watching the ocean, taking pictures of the sunset. After 2 in the morning, it's usually empty, just the sound of waves, the wind, and occasionally, a crew member making security rounds. For almost 8 months, I worked those overnight patrols. Every night, at exactly 2:46 a.m., I passed the same passenger. He walked slowly around the promenade, hands behind his back, looking out at the ocean. The strange part wasn't that he was always there. The strange part was, according to the passenger manifest, he had never boarded the ship. This happened during a 10-night voyage through the North Atlantic in 2022. I worked on board as overnight security. My shift began at 10 p.m., ended at 6 a.m. Every 90 minutes, I completed a full patrol of the public decks, checking emergency exits, pool areas, restaurants, the casino, then finally, the open promenade. One Tuesday, around 2:46, I noticed an elderly man walking near the stern. Dark blue overcoat, gray flat cap, hands folded behind his back. He nodded politely as I passed. Nothing unusual. Passengers often couldn't sleep. The following night, 2:46, same location, same pace, same clothing, same polite nod. I smiled, assumed he simply enjoyed late-night walks. Reasonable enough, at least initially. After a week, I realized something. He always walked in exactly the same direction. Never faster, never slower, never carrying a drink, never speaking to anyone. Curiosity eventually got the better of me. I approached him. "Beautiful night." He smiled. "It always is." His voice sounded calm, almost distant. "Are you having trouble sleeping?" He looked toward the ocean. "No, I'm waiting." "For what?" He smiled again. "You'll know," then continued walking. The conversation left me unsettled. The next morning, I asked guest services whether they knew him. I described his appearance. They searched the passenger list. Nothing. No matching name. No photograph. No cabin assignment. Security assumed I'd mistaken one passenger for another. Reasonable explanation. Mostly. The following evening, I discreetly photographed him from a distance. When I checked my phone afterward, the promenade appeared completely empty. Only the ocean. No man. Weeks passed. Every voyage. Every night. 2:46. He returned. Eventually, I mentioned him to Victor, one of the ship's oldest officers. Victor became unusually quiet, then asked, "Does he still wear the blue coat?" I hadn't mentioned the coat. Victor sighed. Years before I joined the crew, another officer had reported seeing an elderly passenger walking the promenade after midnight. Always alone. Always near the stern. Always around the same time. The reports quietly stopped. No explanation was ever given. Mostly, one stormy night, high winds forced security to close the promenade to passengers. Every access door locked automatically. No one could enter. At 2:46, I checked the security cameras. The promenade remained empty. Then, the man appeared, not walking through a doorway. Simply, already there, walking his usual route. I hurried downstairs, unlocked the nearest access door, stepped outside. The deck was empty. Only rain, wind, dark ocean. Yet the security monitor inside still showed him walking. Another month passed. Near the end of my contract, I decided to follow him. At exactly 2:46, I quietly walked 20 yards behind him, keeping pace. For nearly 10 minutes, he never looked back, never changed speed. Eventually, he stopped beside the stern railing, still facing the ocean. Without turning around, he quietly said, "You're not supposed to follow." I froze. "I just wanted to ask who you are." He nodded slightly. I used to ask the same question. Before I could respond, the ship's horn sounded, long, deep, echoing across the water. I looked toward the bridge for only a second. When I turned back, the man was gone. Only his flat cap rested against the railing, moving gently in the wind. I picked it up. It felt dry, even though rain had soaked everything else. The cap carried a small embroidered name inside. Not a passenger name, a crew employee number. The uniform office checked the records. The number belonged to a security officer, retired decades earlier, or at least, that's what the records claimed. I kept the cap locked inside my cabin. The next morning, it had disappeared. Months later, the cruise line renovated the promenade. New decking, new railings, everything replaced. During demolition, workers removed an old section of flooring near the stern. Hidden beneath it, they discovered a tarnished brass plaque. The engraving had almost worn away. Only 4 words remained readable. "Keep walking until dawn." Nobody knew why it had been installed. No blueprints mentioned it. I finished my final contract soon afterward. Never returned to sea. Almost a year later, I took a cruise as a passenger. Not crew, just a vacation. Around 2:45, I couldn't sleep, so I stepped outside onto the promenade. The deck looked empty. Then, far ahead near the stern, I saw an elderly man. Dark blue coat, gray flat cap, hands behind his back, walking slowly beside the railing. He stopped, turned slightly, and gave me the same polite nod. I went back inside, closed the door, and stayed in my cabin until sunrise, because some passengers never miss a voyage. Room service never surprises you. People order sandwiches at midnight, coffee before sunrise, dessert after the late-night shows. Most calls are routine. You prepare the tray, knock on the cabin door, wish the guest a pleasant evening, move on. For nearly 2 years, that was my job aboard a cruise ship. Then cabin 814 started calling. Every night, exactly 1:28 a.m. Always the same order. 2 bowls of tomato soup, 1 basket of bread, 2 cups of black coffee. The strange part wasn't the order. The strange part was, cabin 814 had been locked since the 2nd day of the voyage, because the passengers staying there had disappeared. This happened during a 12-night Mediterranean cruise in the summer of 2023. I worked overnight room service aboard a cruise ship carrying nearly 3,000 passengers. My shift began at 9 p.m., ended at 5 a.m. Most of the orders came after the theater shows ended. By 1 a.m., the kitchens became quiet again. Only a handful of late-night calls remained. On the 2nd evening of the voyage, cabin 814 failed to answer the morning housekeeping knock. Guest services tried calling. No answer. Security opened the cabin. The room looked untouched. Beds neatly made. Suitcases unpacked. Passports inside the safe. The passengers were gone. No one remembered seeing them leave. The cabin was sealed. Management quietly reassigned neighboring guests. Most passengers never noticed. 3 nights later, 1:28 a.m., the room service phone rang. Display, 814. I answered. A calm woman's voice spoke softly. 2 tomato soups. Fresh bread. 2 black coffees. Thank you. The line disconnected. I checked the occupancy system. Cabin 814 still showed out of service. Reasonable explanation? Maybe someone had accidentally transferred the call. At least, that's what I told myself. The following night, 1:28, the same call, same voice, same order. The kitchen supervisor frowned. He suggested we ignore it. The phone rang again. This time, he answered. The woman calmly repeated the order, then added, "We're still waiting." The supervisor slowly hung up. Neither of us spoke. Management ordered the phone line disconnected. Engineering physically removed the cabin telephone. The next night, 1:28, the room service phone rang again. Display. My stomach tightened. The engineer confirmed something impossible. There was no telephone inside cabin 814 anymore. Curiosity eventually overcame common sense. Instead of ignoring the order, I prepared it, exactly as requested. 2 soups, fresh bread, 2 coffees. I pushed the service cart down the silent hallway. Cabin 814 sat near the end. The security seal remained across the door, untouched. I knocked. No answer. Then, from inside, I heard silverware gently touching porcelain. Someone quietly setting a table. I stepped backward. The hallway suddenly felt colder. The security seal remained perfectly intact. No one could have entered. I left the tray outside, returned to the kitchen. An hour later, I went back. The tray was gone. Only the folded napkin remained, placed neatly in the center of the carpet. The next morning, security reviewed every hallway camera. Nobody approached cabin 814. Nobody removed the tray. Yet, between 2 video frames, the cart simply became empty. Weeks passed. Every night, 1:28. Every call, same order. Eventually, the captain ordered cabin 814 permanently locked. A steel maintenance lock replaced the electronic one. Only senior officers carried the key. The phone still rang. One stormy night, the ship rolled heavily. Power briefly failed. Emergency lights illuminated the corridors. At exactly 1:28, every telephone aboard the ship rang simultaneously. Not just room service. Every guest cabin, every crew office, every maintenance workshop, all displaying the same number. The ringing stopped after exactly 30 seconds. Passengers later assumed it had been part of the power outage. Crew members knew better. Near the end of the voyage, the captain quietly allowed engineering to inspect cabin 814 one final time. The maintenance lock remained untouched. The door opened. Everything looked exactly as before. Beds made, luggage neatly packed, curtains closed, except the dining table. 2 empty soup bowls rested side by side. Fresh breadcrumbs scattered across the tablecloth. 2 coffee cups still warm. Nobody spoke. The captain quietly closed the door. Cabin 814 remained empty for the rest of the season. Officially, months later, the ship entered dry dock for renovations. Several passenger cabins were renumbered. Cabin 814 became cabin 816. The old number disappeared from every deck plan. Mostly, I left the cruise line shortly afterward. Different career. No more overnight shifts. No more room service. Almost a year later, I stayed in a seaside hotel while attending a hospitality conference. Around 1:28 a.m., the room phone rang. Still half asleep, I answered. A calm woman's voice quietly asked, "Are the soups ready?" Before I could respond, the line went dead. I checked the caller display. Instead of another room number, only 3 digits appeared. 814. I unplugged the phone. Didn't sleep again that night. Sometimes, people think cruise ships leave their stories behind when they return to port. But every now and then, something that boarded with the passengers never really disembarks. And sometimes, it's still waiting for room service.